we're gonna give you some cool little insight into what's about to happen with this platform. In fact, I'm gonna stop sharing and then I'm gonna log into a second platform to give you even a little more insider baseball here. So, all right, before we begin, let me show you what we're going to be doing with this application moving forward.
Very good.
Let's see, close. All right. So let me share screen number two. All right. So just to get everybody up to speed on the platform, we made an announcement out at PAX 8 Beyond last week that Betty, our new AI assistant, Betty will be followed by Bob at some point, but every everyone will be able to take a look at Betty, and Betty is going to be your business's best friend. We have this in a controlled environment right now, but what Betty can do moving forward is provide the insight and the optimization that everybody's been looking for. So Betty will be looking at all the contracts, be looking at all of the everything in that stack, everything in your app, all your transactions, and helping you automate literally on the fly. So I'm going to switch back over to my let's see, switch back over to my other webinar presentation screen, and again get this party started. But want to kind of get a little insight into what we're about to unleash on the marketplace here as we progress. All right, so I'm gonna share this window. All right, so Betty is definitely smarter than everybody because she knows everything about everything, which is great. So moving forward, we're also going to be putting in a ton of enablement materials and landing pages and just all kinds of crazy, amazing stuff for you guys to help really convert. So landing pages examples, we'll give you a true assess document that you can send out to customers and prospects. And the goal with True Assess is to literally in 10 minutes or less take an existing customer, a prospect, authenticate to their environment, show them all their sprawl, show them all the AI risk exposure, and then, whether you do it on a call or in person, have them connect to their bank accounts and credit cards and show them the overall spend and potential waste. So there's going to be some amazing enablement materials coming out here in the very near term. So I just want to throw some of those out at you. So many have asked about the application and really how do you start to uh, bring this application out to the marketplace, whether it's customers or prospects. Many have heard of the just incredible success stories that we have. I hate to keep picking on Chad down in Georgia, but I think he's closing into $1 million saved for his customer. And I think he's got another customer, a couple other customers that are jumping on and saving like 5,000 a month, 2,750 a month. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. The amount of overspending that everybody does at, it just in general, right? And then again, for those that don't know, this was kind of born out of our overspending, having thought that we had canceled a couple applications, subscriptions, and realizing they had been being billed and billed and billed for months and months, and we didn't have any visibility. And so that was one of the sparks to say, look, we got to get control of our stack, and we got to get control of our sprawl and expenses. So I think what's important for everybody to understand, right, is that there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of noise out there with just AI in general, right? And just MSP pricing and packaging. And I think it's easy for everybody to get lost in the shuffle of what's going on. But the process that we've put together and the rationale really helps to key on, getting customers, not just, helping them optimize their stack and expenses, but it's getting them ready for AI. And we've got all types of statistics, and we'll throw some of these over to everybody, after the webinar. But if you've heard me speak, I mentioned back in September of last year, the average MSP at that point in September had 88.1 products in their stack. And at that time, roughly 2.2 products out of those 88 were either AI native, like a Chat GPT, Gemini, Claude, or AI enabled. So maybe like a Salesforce or HubSpot that had some lightweight, AI, Q&A built into it. Fast forward to March, and we actually should run these numbers again, but in March, that stack that was 88.1 in September grew to 96.2 applications within the MSP stack. And out of that 96.2 number, now 16% of those applications, or 16 of those applications were AI enabled or AI native. So you think about that in a period of about 6 months, 7 months or so, we've gone from, dabbling with one or two to now 16% of the stack. And I'm sure if we looked at these numbers, we're probably closing in on 25 to 30. I mean, every day, somebody's adding in an AI enable capability. Look at us as an example, right? So I think that the challenge with this is that everybody is trying all these new AI applications, and most MSPs don't really have full visibility of what's going on in the customer environments. Internally, the MSP might be cognizant of the risk of AI exposure and what have you, but for the customers, it's the wild, wild west, right? And they're trying, it's almost like daily a new AI enabled application a day. So this idea of sprawl and getting to this kind of baseline state, I think is going to be very important for everybody moving forward because it's going to become more critical moving forward because of the risk, the exposure, and the sprawl redundancy that's out there. So the right approach when talking to customers is that this is not just another tool, right? This is it's a co-management opportunity for you to sit down with your customers, run the scouting report, help them understand what their sprawl looks like today, right? Because again, it's one of these things. In time and time again, almost every call that I listen into with our sales team, or not a sales team, but our success team, an MSP will authenticate or integrate with Microsoft to their tenant, and we'll ask how many applications do you think you guys are running, and average MSP says 30, 40. And again, we have the empirical data now. It's 96.2. We've seen some really crazy outliers where, some of the MSPs had 300 plus applications, touching their environment. And those are the authenticated applications. And that's important distinction. So the right approach for this tool moving forward is really it's an assessment tool, right? And then you're going to turn on the ongoing monitoring and maintenance to make sure that you're keeping everything harmonious and helping them understand, where their sprawl is and potential savings. And I mentioned, it's hard not to talk about it, but what Betty will do for you and your customers is just going to be absolutely insane. What we've done internally, in just helping to help optimize the stack, show the redundancies, make suggestions it's pretty outstanding. So be more to come there. All right, this is a concept here, and then you guys are going to get this full playbook. By the way, we're going to send this out right afterward. But the threat landscape has absolutely shifted, right? And it's funny, having started ID Agent 10 plus years ago now, right? We had the idea of what is your threat landscape, right? What are your potential exploit points? And typically at that point we were thinking on-prem, network based, and obviously SaaS was a thing then, but we didn't have nearly the level of sprawl that's occurring at this point. So in the past, when we were looking for compromised data, it was relatively, I wouldn't say it was a little chaotic, but it's still relatively manageable, right? The volumes of dumps out there were not it was relatively easy for us to find and manage. But now, because the threat landscape has evolved so drastically and your attack surface area has evolved so drastically, right? This is now the new dark web. Like in my opinion, it's a bold statement, but yeah, that the challenge and why this makes it even worse than previously with the kind of the old dark web moniker, I guess, is that the sprawl is two, three, 4x of what it was 10 years ago, right? So the potential exploit points are two, three, four, 5 times greater, right? Number of ways to number of applications and ways applications to exploit and credentials to exploit to get into those applications, and at the same time it's never been easier for data to leave the organization. Now, hopefully, many of you, if you're using a Claude or Chat GPT internally, you have a kind of a business or corporate version of that where you're not letting the models train on all of your corporate data. But let's face it, the reality is that you guys might have a policy to use Claude, but most of the population has been conditioned already to use Chat GPT, and so they're going to default to their personal Chat GPT. And so whether it's you know traditionally in network or if it's at home, that's just human nature. And so I think one of the most important things about this application that we've built, and again doing this as assessment, is that the tool now identifies AI enabled or AI native applications. And so I think it's important to help the customers understand that it's the game is changed categorically, right? You're doing your job as an MSP of keeping the emails flowing and the backups backed up, and and what have you. But the sprawl is uncontrollable, and it's out of your control. But you need to enforce that layer of visibility and accountability. And that's one of the other great things about this tool. It's not just, hey, there's discovery, right? But there's discipline around it. It's all right, here are the 80 applications that you're using, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer. Let's go through them one by one, and figure out what department owns this application and who should own that application internally. So setting that level of accountability up front is absolutely paramount. And this is changing the fundamental value proposition of a QBR, or even the intent of a QBR, because you're now sitting down actively. You have a reason to sit down with the customer, right? It's not just to show them a fancy dashboard and pretty pie charts or what have you. It's, hey, look, I need an hour of your time, right? I need, 90 minutes of your time. We have to go through these one by one to show you the level of sprawl that we are dealing with as an MSP in trying to support you, right? And I'm telling you, this is one of these things. We used to have one of our previous slides. We used to have this image of a head exploding. That's literally what happens. And it's almost akin to what that kind of aha moment back in the day when we said, look, just show the customer their compromised credential. And it was one of those visceral reactions. But same thing, people always underestimate low. They have no clue about how many applications their business is actually running. And you've never really had a tool or an incentive to show them. Um, I kid the firewall manufacturers all the time, right? I was just doing a keynote for one of them and said, you guys have had this data, through logs for the last 30 plus years, and you never thought to surface this, right? So that's where we are. It's really showing the volume of sprawl and applications and what have you. So, DB, I'll let you jump in here in a moment. Maybe reinforcing, what we're talking about, the application sprawl. But I guess when you're having conversations or your team's having conversations, is that a pretty accurate statement in that everybody underestimates their level of sprawl?
Absolutely. It's the number one thing they see. And once they start using BetterTracker, what's really exciting about it is we pull the reports from our Scout 365 and the Google Scout, and then they really see what they're missing. They really see what the sprawl is. They really see where the extra money's being spent, as well as the piece of compliance of items they're missing for that particular organization. So you're 100% right.
Yeah, I know we've provided, I think it's in our portal, but we've got our application mapped to some of the common controls and the most common frameworks out there. And um, obviously, inventory and policy and supply chain are 100%, in all of those applications or all of those frameworks. And that's again one of the other great utilities of this application is that it's showing you again, that it's helping you reinforce or meet those requirements or obligations within those frameworks. Um, I know we put a notice out here about 2 or 3 weeks ago that we finally got the approval with Google, so we have the G Suite integration as well. So similar to what we do on the Microsoft side, we have the even more seamless integration with the G Suite. In about about 4 weeks, we will have that one-click authentication into Microsoft. I know that it's a little challenging in the way that we structured it initially, but the idea behind that when we roll that out is that you authenticate, you see your entire customer tenant list within your environment, and you can run these reports instantly with each one of those customers. This absolutely should be the best tool for you to go in and have an engaging conversation and really help upsell and cross sell all these darn solutions that you've been, trying to sell to them. But now you can do it with more empirical data. And we'll get into this concept of DOES, this sales framework, because it's been very, very successful, not just previously with ID Agent, but bringing it over here. It's absolutely, it's been massive. And I'll tell you that DOES framework that we'll show you is not just applicable to BetterTracker. I mean, it's applicable to just about every other discovery tool that's out there. It's really about discovery, optimization, enforcement, and scaling. And we'll walk through that here shortly. Um, Hopefully you're doing this now, right? If you look at your customer base, and you probably have a pretty good beat on I'd call it the level of organization or the level of sprawl. You might have just some assumptions based on working with some of these organizations. But I think it's important to really segment these customers that you're working with into a couple different buckets. Um, yeah, I get a little note pop says there's some questions. So I can't see these questions. So David, you can see them. Feel free to interject while people are asking. So I want to make sure that this is interactive. But yeah, important thing is really segmenting the customers because it is linear, no question about it. The larger the
Oh,
organization, the more sprawl and the less contained that sprawl is. It's funny, even on the smaller end, when we first ran
yeah.
this for us at maybe 15 employees at the time, I would have guessed we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 or 50 applications, and we had 107. So this is not just an enterprise mid-market, upper tier of your customer challenge. This is an every business challenge.
Yeah.
You say something there, David, or you got a
Yeah,
question?
yeah, I do have a couple good questions in
Oh,
here,
good.
Kevin. From one of them is it says Better Tracker Marketing will probably be able to answer this, but they were asking if one of them is want to understand if someone is using QuickBooks Online, why would they want to use this?
Right. So QuickBooks Online is 100% a look back, a rear view mirror of what has happened, right? And with again, everyone, whether it's QuickBooks or Zero or Oracle or what have you, right? Those are basically snapshots of what happened in that month. The way that we've created the financial integration, it's proactive, right? It's alerting.
Mhm.
It's real time. It's when that transaction occurs, right? QuickBooks is not also allowing you to ingest, contracts and set contract alert dates and notice periods, and they're certainly not tying it to your technology stack. So yeah, fundamentally different than an accounting ledger, type of a platform. So
Mhm.
yeah, totally different.
Yeah, well, and here's another good question we get asked a lot in the sales world. For the clients that use free mail like Gmail, can BetterTracker still connect to it? Or does it have to be Google Workspace based?
I think it's Google Workspace based.
Mhm.
It's there's got to be some level of tracking an organization because it's not going to find the applications in just a free Gmail. That would be more of a email monitoring type of application. Yeah, so that free mail Gmail is not going to typically look and log the applications that they're authenticating to.
And there's a reason for that. Honestly, there's we have found that's where a lot of hackers they look at that all day long. It makes it a security problem.
Yeah, no
So
doubt, no doubt.
yeah, so
Yeah, so segmenting and feel free to interject as we progress.
yep,
No,
yep,
it's fundamental just in general, right? I mean, you should be segmenting your customers and high value customers and low opportunity, high opportunity customers. Um, Mentioned, not just the size, but it's also maybe the maturity, operational maturity of those customers that you're working with. In general, right? Is a broad generalization, but less operational mature, the more challenged, let's say, that business typically tends to be. So, if you're looking at, customers that, really need this kind of utility, it's the ones that, just they have application sprawl or unmanaged applications. They're trying testing stuff all day long. We do see that, right? And part of the integration into Microsoft is anytime an application is authenticated to, if it's new, you're going to get an alert. And so you have that level of visibility. Um, you've got businesses with high churn, high turnover, guaranteed. Pretty much guaranteed that they're not tracking logins and how many logins they've been in and when's the last time they've logged in and how many of the employees have not logged in and which is equates to basically license counts, and then credit card, ones that are really okay, liberal with those credit card policies. And then again, we were guilty of this in the past. I think I think it actually related to Zoom where we had employees onboarding and we didn't have time to get them, set up through the corporate account. I think it was just, all right, put it on a credit card. And, lo and behold, we had, 4 or 5, additional Zoom licenses that probably cost 2 or 3x of what they should have been if we just add them to our corporate account. So that stuff happens all day long. Now, this is really interesting, right? Kind of, this is, reinforcing what we've been talking about, right? Your customers have, very little to no visibility in application sprawl, right? Just in general, right? Use an MSP should be on top of that internally, right? But 50 to 70% of the applications that they're using are not going through authentication, right? So it is wild, wild west. It's just email address and password. And so certainly opportunities, that's if you look at by percentage of the stack, I think 70% of MSPs are providing, password management and multi-factor. But there still is a lot of greenfield out there. And so, kind of forcing them down this path of authentication and control is really where you want to be, because that's obviously providing greater visibility and greater control over sprawl. I mean, this is not surprising probably to most, but 79% of these AI applications are not tracked. I mean, and I often, unfortunately pick on the marketing teams, sales as well, but marketing is the absolute worst offenders of this because every 15 seconds there's a new AI enabled marketing tool out there. And it's you don't need a credit card, just put your, just sign up for a 15-day free trial and they're doing that across at times dozens and dozens of applications. So this AI shadow IT is absolutely out of control. And then and a lot of that is that um, you're not privy to and they're not buying these licenses through you, quite often, right? And it's how would you? I mean, with all the the deluge of new AI applications. And so this is how your customers and you end up having zero visibility or no visibility into the actual sprawl that's going on with the business right now. All right. Any quick questions? Any more questions come in? Okay.
no, and
Uh,
I've been answering some of them that are pretty basic that they've asked for direct feedback on.
oh, good.
So
Good, good.
we're good.
All right. So this is a look back in Q1 when we started to get all these success stories coming in. We're asking, right, well, what happened? What was, what did you find? What did you discover? And, by volume, see the squares or the rectangles or what have you, are a little bit larger. I don't know if we have percentages built into this one. Oh yeah, there we go. The numbers. This was when we looked at in March, I think we took a group of about 30 customers that had given success stories. Maybe it might have been like almost 40 or something like that. But 10 were, these tools are no longer used. So it's that visibility. 8 were having overbills or being overcharged by vendors. Uh, 6 were getting a grasp on application sprawl. There's spreadsheet tracking. I mean, you can't really run a business, on spreadsheets anymore. And that's unfortunately what most people do is, they'll try to track their applications in the spreadsheet, which is just insanity. Yeah, 4 of them forgot that they were being billed. Yeah, 3 of the use case was shadow IT, AI discovery, build after canceled, auto renewed, and duplicate subscriptions. So yeah, I mean this is stuff that's plaguing businesses day in and day out, and it's probably not just one of these. It's probably 2, 3, or 4 of these with each one of these businesses. So you talk about use cases and findings. This is why you go in and end up being perceived as a superhero. Um, so an example, we looked at, I mentioned kind of maturity and identifying, types of customers that are ideal. But this is a genericized ideal customer, right? A small IT organization. This one had, 40 plus SaaS tools purchased on cards. There you go. Marketing was using 15 of them, different tools, overlap in projects. I could probably even guess the overlap in project tools because there's pretty common trends amongst most small businesses. But sales purchase AI writing assistants, finance discover duplicate Zoom subscriptions. I mean, this is stuff that happens day in and day out. I guarantee at least 80% of your customers are suffering from these ailments, these self-inflicted ailments. So going back to the DOES sales framework, and this is something that we created as I spun out ID Agent from my consulting firm back in the day. It became painfully obvious that actually as we started to sell into the MSP space, I haven't been an MSP for years, but it's painfully obvious that there's way too much friction in the sales process, whether it's selling to new customers or even prospective customers. Your job as a technician, right, as a trusted advisor, as a managed service provider, managed security service provider, uh, your job is to be an ally, and the sales conversation shouldn't be conflict. You shouldn't be pushing water up a hill. And the one of the ways that we crack that code with ID Agent again back in the day is that again, this is your password, and you have some plausible deniability, but if it shows up in 7 different data dumps and it's either the same or a derivation of the same password, then you're guilty, right? But the point was that you're bringing in fact-based data to help get the customer to understand why they need to be taking security more serious, why they need to be upgrading to your premium service or what have you, or why they need to be buying security awareness training or these other applications that you've been trying to sell. So similarly, right, the concept behind DOES, right, is discover, the discovery tool. You optimize, you sit down and I help them optimize their sprawl, find the redundancies, right? Put in the accountability. Then you're able to enforce policy. You're able to enforce security. And this is particularly important, again, moving forward with AI, right? We've got some fantastic partnerships with AI policy and enforcement tools. This concept of ITDR has been out there for a while, but there's even more next gen ITDR applications out there. There's a phenomenal one that we were introduced to. Again, with WatchGuard, they think most people think of them as a firewall company, but they bought an application that just does some amazing DLP and preventative, um, you know, AI exploits, right? So not limiting the ability to upload certain documents, PII, company information into LLMs, and not just policy, but enforcing that. There's some others out there. There's a startup called SciFlow that is doing something similar. Full transparency, I'm an investor in that company. But anyway, there's some amazing tools out there that are really driving enforcement. And the next step is to scale, right? Um, this should be a very, very repeatable framework, whether it is to a current customer or a prospect. Taking 10 minutes, showing them their data, and then walking through the optimization of their data, showing them why they need the additional solutions that you're providing should be an absolute no-brainer conversation. It should be adversarial, it shouldn't be a conflict. It should be a very next natural, you need to, buy this, right? Period. So that discovery is about, we've been talking about this, for most of the webinar, but the discovery is about capturing their attention with their data, right? Again, this is not you're going in and say, hey, there's a survey out there, or there's this new tool, right? Doing that integration with Microsoft, showing them their sprawl is taking their data and saying, look, Houston, we have a problem. This is why, again, we've been trying to get you to, clean up your act. This is why we need to put this level of accountability in place, right? To see who owns these applications and what department owns them, right? And then this is why we need to start enforcing, stronger policy downstream, right? So that discovery and capturing their attention should be similar to what you did back in the day with, dark web monitoring and credentials, right? Because it shows them the true scope of their sprawl. And again, I think having done this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times now, I don't think we've had one where people were all underwhelmed or not blown away by, how many tools they're actually using. It is one of those holy crap moments. There you go. You're presenting the facts, right? The level again kind of goes back to the level of applications and now the level of AI tools that are out there is, and this is probably the most common, 20, 22, 23 AI tools that are on the market, but every 15 seconds there's a new AI enabled, this, that, and or other thing. And so again, this is discovery and it's preventing the facts, right? And the sprawl, the stack is just, it's growing where you're trying to uncover with the customers is you're showing them the number of tools within the organization. You want to show them, are they actually logging in? When's the last time they logged in? Right? Have they even logged in? So you're identifying active and dormant accounts or applications, right? You're sitting down at that QBR and you're going through ownership of these applications, right? You're working with them on, you got these applications. All right, now let's sit down and let's start to upload your contracts into the tool and figure out your start date and end dates. That way we can truly provide a VCIO service. And this is what's been absolutely missing, in that VCIO equation is you really having the ability to upload, manage, and be on the same page when these applications start and end, right? And so it's that level of accountability, it's organization, but it's also, let's be honest. I mean, it's giving you another opportunity to go in and flip some of those applications, to be bought through you as well. So again, the upsell opportunity should be pretty material. You're showing AI usage and adoption rates. It's showing shadow IT. And then we talked about previously, there's, the compliance associated risks that are out there. You're showing you're really that you're being proactive, you're staying on top of this because compliance is, used to be a fintech, legal, and healthcare dynamic or GovCon dynamic, and it's now making its way down, because of supply chain, it's making its way down just about every customer these days. Ever quick check in. Any other questions pop up?
answering most of them, but there's one good one in here from John. He said, I have Kaseya, VSA, and BMS from RM and PSA. So I'm not sure if they'll be able to integrate with BetterTracker. I know that we do. We use Autotask and ConnectWise, so they're going to have the ability to install the applications from onto their computers from BetterTracker. I think what John's looking at is how our integration is going to work to pull all the information in, Kevin.
Or I don't know if he's asking if it's there's an agent, that's
Yeah, an
pushing
agent as well.
applications.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think they're generally speaking, that is a roadmap item that we throw around. We
Hmm.
will be doing the in-application extension for discovery, and we're looking at an agent-based discovery to show again the broader sprawl. So whether we turn it into an agent that's pushing, we may go down that path. That's something that leave it to Garrett and the team to prioritize that. Um, and that could actually be expedited because of the framework and how we're leveraging kind of
Hmm.
the AI buildup now. So, but yeah, definitely a good question. Yeah.
Here's one more for you, Kevin. They're pretty good. Um, Maris was asking us is that how soon do we go out of North America and go to other like EMEA or APAC? Uh,
Timely question. Did
yeah.
our first
So.
EMEA demo, not first, but did an EMEA demo yesterday. Um, Technically, we can do it. I mean, we can do it today. I think people are looking for, in EMEA, obviously GDPR. We've built the infrastructure for it. Our EULA and right to be removed and data usage is 100% in compliance with GDPR. We just gotta, basically, light up the server over in EMEA and in APAC. So it's not too distant future. The other thing is that each one of those regions has different, fintech requirements. And so I know Keith and legal team, they're weeding through that. But I would say CEO in me wants to say, 60 days. Everyone will tear me up for that. So I'll say by early Q4, we will have those solved. Um, yeah, because it's a request that we get quite often, especially with multinational customers, MSP customers that are multinationals, and
Mhm.
we do get quite a bit of inquiries from overseas. So
Yep.
no, we've
We're
got
we're we're good. You can move on. We've answered some more questions, and this has
cool.
been great. Thank you for your interaction, everyone.
Yeah, yeah. So I know we're kind of we started late. We can go a little bit longer if need be. I'll try to get through these here in the next couple of minutes, but again, you're presenting the findings back to them, right? You're showing them, the risk. You're showing them, the financial exposure. Again, it's these moments, and everybody maybe in the back of their mind probably understand or realize that they've got a lot of sprawl, but everyone's so damn busy, and quite honestly, I think half the population is just straight up lazy. They're not doing this. They're not cleaning up their act. They're not optimizing their own business. And so, I think way you're presenting it is that look, we have to get a grasp on sprawl. We have to do it now because the tidal wave of AI applications is coming, and so we have to inventory, make sure that we have a really good understanding of what you're using, and then start to put the policies in place, to make sure that you're not vulnerable to AI, not just AI exploits, but what's even easier than an AI exploit is say, hey, here's my list of customers. Let's upload it to Gemini and see if there's any trends along the customers. And you're naive or your head's in the sand if you don't think that stuff happens all day long, right? So again, this is about pre-positioning of where AI is about to smack people upside the head. The good news is, right, your customers have been hearing this. I mean, they're hit with AI all day long. So this should be a very natural conversation to have, right? So it's the sprawl, the stack, the exposure, and then you sit down, and again, whether they do it in parallel with you and you sit down in person with them and have them authenticate to their bank account and credit card and walk them through it, or you give them as a task and then you have a follow-up with them. when they start to pull in those transactions and they see the volume of duplicate transactions and they see they've been paying for 4 or 5 or 6 applications that they shouldn't have been paying for. I mean, this is why MSPs are going nuts. And this is why, the average that we're saving internally at an MSP is 25,000. I should know the exact number, but it's funny. It's fluctuated between, 25 and low $26,000 saved. But then for the customers, it's just over twice as much is what the MSP is identifying as waste for their customers. And so it's like you guys are becoming superheroes to the MSPs because you're not just helping them with policy and sprawl, and AI, potential AI exploits. You're helping them where it hits in the wallet, it's finance, right? And so bringing both of those things to the table has been pretty massive. So again, findings, right? It's discovering, the sprawl. It's the applications. It's what's being used, what's not being used, what's not being logged into. What licenses are out there, and it's super easy. Now, this is going to get even, and I hate, they always yell at me for this, but just trust me, when the report that we're going to be putting out here for Scout 365, what you're going to see here in a couple of weeks, hopefully Garrett's not on this one, but the design and the impact of the new reports are just going to be just lights out. I mean, it's just going to be so cool. But the idea behind this, right, is you're sitting down with your customers, and this is that proactive check-in, right? And because sprawl and because they're adding new applications, this is always going to change. But when you do that integration into G Suite or you do that integration to Microsoft, their score is going to be 0, right? Because they're not going to be assigned to app departments, they're not going to be assigned to an owner, and you're not going to have a status of whether it's approved, right? So you're going into the customer, you're going to the prospect and saying, look, I just need an hour, right? Let's sit down. Let me show you this report. Let's run through this, right? And you're going to find the duplicate applications. You're going to assign accountability. And the goal is to get this damn number up to 100%, right? And, one day it's going to get to 100%. And the next day it's going to drop because they're going to be adding more applications, right? There's going to be more tools that come in. And so this is that similar to what we did with the dark web report, right? This is sitting down and showing them, you know, that, how they have to think differently and create that level of accountability, right? So here's the complexity of their stack. Here are all the applications that you're using. Again, this is going to get really, really fancy here in a couple of weeks. The spend analysis, right? So you've done the applications and then you sit down and you have them integrate the credit card. I have to look, but I think the average customers integrated 3.8 bank accounts or credit cards into the platform, right? So they're using this quite significantly. We have billions and billions of transactions that we're now able to benchmark. And part of Betty, as we roll that out, it's going to start showing you as an MSP benchmarks. It's going to show you how your stack and how your expense aligns with the rest of the marketplace. So I'm telling you, this is going to be some next level stuff that's coming out here over the next couple of development cycles. But so it's showing them the applications. It's showing them the duplicative applications. We use Plaid. It's used by American Express. It's used by Rocket Money in the consumer space. Connects to 13,000 plus institutions. Every once in a while, we get an oddity that maybe a small regional bank or credit union we have challenges with the connection, but we put the request in, and typically in within 30 to 60 days that gets added. But same thing with these expenses coming in, right? The goal is not to be QuickBooks, right? The goal, though, is to help them organize where this application resides, what part of the stack, and who owns this application, right? So this is accountability. Risk, we talked about this, this entire session here. This is all built around risk. So it's showing the applications that you're using, right? And then you're also seeing applications that you're paying for that are not being authenticated to. And that's a very easy, low-hanging fruit way for an MSP to start converting and enforcing policy, right? You guys are using, 20 tools that are authenticated, but you're paying for Slack and you're paying for Zoom and you're paying for all these other tools, but you're not authenticating to those tools. with Microsoft. So we have limited ability to help you manage those applications effectively, right? So that's one of those really interesting discoveries when you see all the myriad of applications that they're spending money on, and you go down that checklist and say, all right, now let's get this, let's enforce policy, let's enforce authentication, right? That's where you're seeing a lot of conversions. Mention the how this helps to meet requirements within each one of these frameworks, right? Whether it's GDPR, CMMC, SOC 2, right? It's third party visibility, application ownership. Nobody's doing this effectively. Nobody. And I'm thinking go out on a limb and say we're probably the only, if maybe one or two applications in the world that's really enforcing it from an individual standpoint. So this is massive for those on the call that have regulated customers. And then, discover offers and pricing, right? So, you can use this, and this is a level of comfort thing. Some are using this as a, free added value way to enhance the QBRs, right? Some are doing initial audits, right? And that's a phenomenal foot in the door with the business, right? They're responding. And again, we'll have these templates and we'll put these, little, playbooks and enablement guides together for you. But you're going in to say, look, we do basically AI risk assessment, sprawl assessment, right? Spend, overspend or expense management assessment. Right? We charge $9.99 or we charge, $19.99. And then we charge a monthly fee, for the monitoring on the back end. So we've got a whole bunch of MSPs that are just basically selling assessments and then turning on monitoring and allowing their customers to, basically manage it themselves or they're co-managing it. So there's a number of ways to price, whether you want to give it away for free. My suggestion is this should be an upcharge at QBR time because it's time, right? It's value, it's discovery, it's accountability. So I don't think you should be afraid to charge $9.99 to $19.99 for that assessment. And then on the back end, depending on the size, I think you should feel perfectly fine charging 99 to 5.99 for kind of the call it 10 to 50 user customers that you have. So yeah, you start adding this up and then you start looking at the cross sell opportunities, it becomes pretty massive, right? So you've got the tech stack audit. You could do that individually. You can do AI, audit and optimization, your ongoing monitoring. There's a number of ways that you can, bring this and price to market. But yeah, it's and we'll be glad to walk you through some of these. I mean, in my email hopefully is out there. It's just Kevin at Channel Program or Kevin at BetterTracker. But be glad to walk you through these pricing models. We talked about optimize, right? So you're optimizing their business, right? You're not just, managed services, you're managed optimization services moving forward. You're optimizing their business, and that's going to help you stand apart from everybody else that's out there. It's all about optimization, cost savings, and maturity. This is just some slides on the contract alerting. So you're adding in the contracts. So you're adding the start date, end dates, the notice period. Good news is that the AI OCR application Thursday evening is going to undergo a massive upgrade. And so some of these really dogged, complex contracts that some have been struggling with are going to be nice and easy to upload and organize, which is great. But again, this is all about alerting, right? So it's optimization, alerting, and showing that you're there. And then enforcing, controls and policies based on discovery and optimization. So they've got a couple more slides. I know we're coming up on the top of the hour. And just really re-emphasizing, this is going to be now in an era of accountability. So it's departmental, it's ownership, and it's visibility of these applications that are coming in. And then key takeaways, but maybe I'll pause again. David, any other comments or questions?
Good one here from John again. He was talking about the scout report, and the compliance is all a manual process right now. Would he'd like to know a little, elaborate a little bit more on when we're checking for compliance. How can we really look at that as a pretty easy way of doing it and as less manual as possible, I guess, least amount of uh, of a manual process as possible.
Yeah, look, that's another great question, and that's one of the reasons why I want to do a lot more of these moving forward, especially when we roll out Betty, because it's gonna be again
Hmm.
completely
Yeah.
game. But yeah, we've gotten requests several times to build in framework and automate the minimum alerting of a policy or called violation, but you know areas to correct to ensure compliance. So I know that is high on the priorities, the roadmap that we have. So more to come on that because yeah, I spent a career in compliance and GovCon, and so I know exactly how important that is. So yeah, I think today it's an enforcement, a visibility tool that you can lever. But yeah, at some point we want to turn this into a that report should should have a down select to a framework and then align with it. So like what you're thinking, John, because we're thinking the same way. Let's see here. Any other slides? I think that's it. So as part of this, and appreciate everybody your patience as we were trying to get our act together with Zoom login. But as part of this, over the next several days, and we're going to send this over to you, obviously, but next several days, we're going to be adding a ton to the enablement side of things. People have asked for simple landing pages, uh, simple messaging to go in and audit. I truly believe. Again, QBR side, I mean, this is a no-brainer with existing customers. And if you aren't, every one of you on it, if you're not doing this tomorrow, shame on you. And if you need an accountability buddy, call me because I'll keep you accountable. But you should absolutely be doing this with customers. But what you'll see in this the enablement stuff that we send out, this should be a no-brainer with prospects. Say, look, give me 15 minutes, right? Let me do a quick audit. Let me show you the sprawl, whether you're doing it in person or you're doing it, remotely. You say, look, all we need to do is authenticate. We only have read-only access, right? So we're not changing anything. And as soon as we, pull in the application to show you the sprawl, you can even disconnect me at that point. But the point is that you now have the data and you have the visible evidence of the sprawl. And this is how customers need to be sold to moving forward, in my opinion, right? It can't be, vague generalities. It can't be, we're better than, so and so down the street, right? It's, hey, we have this assessment capability. Let me show you how we're different. We have a tool that we can run with you guys. It takes 10 minutes. We start with the, stacks with the application. If you want, we can show you all your duplicate subscriptions, what you're paying for, right? You can do the same thing with them in person where they can authenticate themselves. They can pull it in and then they can disconnect if they want, or you can give it to them for whatever. Give it to them for 20 days, give them to them for a month or 12 months, right? But this should be the ultimate foot in the door moving forward with prospects, right? Anytime that you're able to show them their sprawl, help them get organized, anytime that you're helping them to really understand where they're overspending, like why wouldn't a prospect, sit down with you and at minimum take that meeting and then think about you guys, as they're progressing. So this is all about differentiating. It's all about getting everybody ready for this onslaught of AI that's coming. And it's categorically being different. It's managed, optimization services moving forward, right? Because just managed services is, what is it? Moving forward, it's all about optimization, enforcement, and scaling. So I think my voice is about to go fully, but look, any questions, anything we can do anytime. I want to make sure that you have everything you need from us to be, as as empowered and profitable and successful as possible. So, all right.
Thank you all for joining. Please make sure we have your email so we can send you out the the presentations that Kevin talked about. And again, thank you for joining. We look forward to talking with you.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.